Now, I never thought that it could be so hard to be touched by the light, then left in the dark. That cool compassion my heart once met with, swept away with the tide of a life left breathless on a cold day. Now the undertow could drag me on down, but the current of heaven's gonna bring me around to the spark of a man, to the soul of the new. Every loss from this world helps to widen my view on a cold day. Oh yeah, it's a cold day. The wind...
Hello, everybody. Well, it's been a while. First off, I want to thank everybody for their thoughts, their prayers, their gifts during the past few weeks. It's been tough. It's been tough. 3 weeks ago, tonight, lost my wife, Rhonda, suddenly from allergic reaction to some medication. A new antibiotic she was taking. I'd be kidding you if I didn't tell you it was a very strong hit to the gut. Kids are doing all right. Of course, teenagers will be teenagers. They're not really talking a whole lot yet, but that'll come. Over the past 3 weeks, I've learned a lot. I've written some things in the blog. If you come to this via YouTube or a search or something, and it might not be a bad idea for you to read the blog first. Kind of gives you a little background of who I am and the perspective I'm coming from. This video I want to primarily concentrate on what I've learned about shaving under stress. And you hear my dog outside. If you hear that, they're wound up too. And if he keeps on going, I may have to stop and deal with him. But shaving under stress. Every day is a stress. For whatever reason, our lives are fast-paced and hectic, and it can result in us having a bad shave. Shaving is one of those activities that we can't dismiss how our whole body is functioning, how our mind is functioning. Those things impact us because we're performing. We're doing a skill that takes a while to learn, but once you've learned, that muscle memory kicks in. But one thing I learned is when you're under severe stress, and maybe not even that severe, the muscle memory loses its effectiveness. So, what did I do? Well, of course, I was using my Parker 65R, and immediately afterwards I went for my Gillette Slim Adjustable, which was my father's razor. I wanted an emotional tie going. And I tried out Gillette Red Tip. Nice, I thought, nice mild razor, something, and I'd been using these straight bar razors for quite a while and become quite fond of them. Over and above even the open comb razors that I had been using in the past. But I was getting a lot of nicks, a lot of weepers. It was pretty bloody. Well, I started looking at my technique, and again, it was the muscle memory that went. just being under the stress and strain of what was going on, and even to this day, being under the stress and strain, my muscles hasn't calmed down yet, and it may be a while before they calm down. So I went back to two favorites: my Gillette new style long comb, which worked very, very well with the Persona 74. Of all the open combs that I had, this was the one that worked with it. And I went back to the Razor Rock Jaws. And over time, doing my shaves, I found I got the best shaves from the Razor Rock Jaws. Now, why is that? It really reduced the number of nicks and weepers and things like that I was getting. Was it just that I was tense and I was pushing down too hard? No. That was not all of it. That might have been part of it. But I found, and in looking and examining at it, an open comb razor is designed to give you a more aggressive shave, but also protecting you more than what a solid bar closed comb razor does. You're actually getting more exposure to the blade from a razor like this than from a razor like this. It's counterintuitive. You don't think about it that way, but you do. This blade will nick you faster than this blade will in this razor. And then I started looking at the blades. Well, I fall back on my beginning blade, which was Wilkins' sword. It did all right. I tried some Sharks. I even went back and tried Derby. Ooh, that was a mistake. No. I tried the most ultimate smooth blade that I've got, a Pole Silver Iridium. It did all right, but it just wasn't there. So I went to the other extreme. Okay, if smooth blades isn't doing it for me, then sharp that are smooth. And I went with a Kai blade. Now, Kai blades are just plain wrapper. There's no markings on them whatsoever. They're Japanese-made blades. That's what I'm going to use today in the Razor Rock Jaws. I'm going to use a Kai blade. I found that using as sharp a blade as I could get my hands on, that also had a smoothness factor, which describes the Kai blade in my mind to a T. I could shave with it. I could feel the sharpness. Therefore, my brain kicked in and said, you don't need to press. Cut down on the number of nicks I was getting, and increased the comfort level I was having, and enabled me to get a good 2, sometimes 3 pass shave without a lot of touch-ups. I started off trying to work on some soaps. I've gotten Eva Nesterova gave me this mug filled with concoction of it's tobacco and bay leaf. And because she had seen that was tobacco was one of my favorite scents, she created this for me. So I felt a connection with Eva, and during this period of time I wanted to use her soap. It's a very nice soap, I like it. But I found that just the activity of trying to create a lather from a soap, it was just too much while I was under that toughest stress. Now today I can probably concentrate and focus and do a shave with a soap, but during those first couple of weeks it wasn't working good. So I went back home to the beginning stage and I started using some creams again. I hadn't used a lot of creams, so I went on a maca route binge. And that's what I'm going to use today is maca root. Basically, my face prep that I've been doing is just putting the soap on my face, letting it sit. Also, too, an added level of prevention is, I could go back and start using oil. I had some oil here, Magard Razor. I used that a few times. Pre-shave oil. But I went back to my old reliable Cornhuskers lotion with some grapefruit essential oil in it. Use that as a pre. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to put that on as a pre. And the only other element we got is the brush. Okay. Well, the brush usually doesn't matter whenever you're doing a cream. You could use a board, you could use a badger. But not too long in that first week, I received a very nice surprise in the mail from Scott Pavkovich and Jeff Anderson. They sent me a brush with a nice card. And it created what Scott calls his Circus Chief brush handle with a, I don't even remember what it is. It's a standard silver tip brush. This works real well with creams. And I wanted to feel that connection. And that's another secret. When you're shaving under stress, pull into you some of those favorite products. Pull into you those products that have an emotional tie, that have a connection to somebody that's in your life. It helps. It helps to feel their presence as you're doing your shave. And basically I just put the maca root on my face, rub it in, get a little bit of water. I just let it sit, because preparation is a key element to getting a good shave. Now, under normal circumstances, shaves can be very relaxing. You can kind of get in that zen moment that transports you away and removes your stress. And for a daily stress removing activity, yeah, your shaves can be very, very relaxing. But when you're under severe stress and strain, your shaves probably aren't going to be that great. They're probably not going to be those relaxing periods of time, and it becomes more of a chore. Now, as you're able to focus a little bit more, maybe those shaves can then become a sense of relaxation and escape for you. But I can tell you, when you're under severe stress, when something really is going wrong with you, yeah, you want to shave. You want to feel those whiskers be gone. But for the most part, it falls back into that category of being a chore again. Something that you've got to do, that you need to do. And I can tell you, a lot of days, I skipped shaving just because it was just one more thing that I didn't want to put on my plate. Just one more thing of my list of things that I needed to do that I didn't want to do. And there were a whole bunch of things that I just flat didn't want to do. And for a short period of time, shaving became one of those things. That's a sign of depression. That's a sign of stress. Now, there's another aspect of when your shaves don't work. Now, just one shave, or maybe two shaves occasionally if you're trying out new products, if you're mixing up some things, trying to do some things. A bad shave doesn't mean anything other than it was just a bad shave. It didn't work for you that day. But if you have a string, a back-to-back, you're having far more bad shaves than you're having good shaves. And up to that point, things were going good. You had tried and true reliable products that you were using. You were getting good shaves out of that razor, but then all of a sudden you're not. That's a sign. It's a sign of stress. And it's a key for you to say, well, what's going on here? There could be something physically going on with you that you need to find out what that is. There could be something emotional going on. Maybe you're having a hard time in your marriage. Maybe you're having a hard time at work. Maybe you're just flat tired and exhausted for whatever reason. But when your shaves aren't good and you can't figure out why, we want to blame the products. We want to blame the equipment. We want to say, oh, that cotton picking razor, it's not any good, I'm going to sell it. Or that blade's no good anymore, I'm never going to use them again. Or that cream is terrible, I don't know why I ever bought it. It may not be the product. It may be something inside you that's a problem inside you, a problem with your world that you need to look at and address. So, again, the muscle memory is there as far as what's going on. I could still do the strokes of doing the shave, but the fine motor control, when I was under those high level stress, it just wasn't there. I could tell my hands to do the right things, but they wouldn't do it. I found that when you're under stress, you don't have the control around these curvy areas. So I got a lot of nicks right there. I got a lot of nicks over here. I got nicks along my lip. And using the open comb razor really helped that, because the open comb razor lets some of that lather stay on the skin. It's not totally scraped off as the blade encounters it. And just in its basic design, it just works better at protecting you from the harshness of the blade. As the days progressed, I was able to enjoy my shaves a little bit more. But, there are the emotional factors involved in it that, in the past I came upstairs, I shaved, and I went to bed. Well, I do that still today, but it's a much different situation. So I tend to delay coming upstairs now. So part of the factor of maybe my shave not being quite as good as they could be is that I'm now tired. I'm more exhausted when I come upstairs to go to bed than maybe I was before. And I was a night owl before. But maybe I may have to change my routine around for a while. I may have to go back to shaving during the day, in the mornings. I don't know. And that's all part of grief. You've got to find a new pathway. On my blog, I've got some things posted up there, stages to grief. And you've got to work through all of them. Some of them you go through very, very quickly. Some of them take a while. Some of them you may move through quickly and then go back and revisit them again. Everybody grieves differently. That's a big mistake that a lot of people think is, oh, well, whenever I went through that, it didn't take that long for this, or it didn't take that long for that, or, oh, it took forever for me to get past that. And then in advising and talking and comparing, talking and examining things, as we're dealing with family members or friends that are going through periods of grief, there may be similarities, but everybody's different. Everyone has to create their own way of processing their grief. In the same way, everybody has to find their own way of dealing and handling and managing and coping with stress. Our shaves can help. Sometimes they can become a barrier. Sometimes they can be a warning sign. But we've got to find a new pathway, a less stressful pathway. One of the things that I learned, really I knew it, but it hadn't really hit me, is as I was writing the blog and as I thought, well, I'll write down my history of loss, my history of grieving. I was kind of amazed. I'd never encountered anybody in the 30 plus years I've worked in social services and social work, someone who had as many losses and has had as many situations that would cause grief as I've had in my life. So I kind of wonder if there is such thing as reincarnation, or you live a past life, or you're on this earth for some purpose to learn some lesson. There's all different ways you can look at it. But maybe a lesson God wants to teach me is how to deal with grief and loss. And I've thought, well, why? And maybe it's because that's the direction I need to go with my career, go into grief counseling. Maybe I need to write a book. Maybe I just need to be more available to the people around me that are going through grief. I don't know. I'm going to have to find that out. But pay attention to your shaves. Pay attention to your feelings. Don't stuff them. Don't hide them. Handle them in an appropriate way. The best way to do that is to talk to the people that are around you. Any of you, if you need some resources, I can point you in the direction of some good books and some good information about the grief process. Just email me. My email is available through my YouTube account. You can contact me on my blog, Facebook, whatever. But don't go through your grief alone. And just because an episode of grief occurred many, many, many years ago and you think, I'm over that. If you haven't worked through the stages of grief adequately, appropriately, and completely, then you haven't grieved well. You may have grieved, but you haven't handled it well, and you've moved on, but it's still there, and it's still affecting you. It's something that you have to work through. You can't push it aside, you can't ignore it, and you can't stuff it down. Every time there's a new episode of grief in my life or in someone else's life and it touches my life, I have to revisit my past episodes of grief. It's the way it works. When we love and there's a loss, you grieve. The only way to avoid grief is to never love. That'd be a sad world, wouldn't it? So, the cost of loving is grieving. And it's worth it. It's worth it. Grief is something that some people get caught up with and it destroys them. Don't let that happen to you. You can work through your grief. You can cope with your grief. And I can tell you, if you're angry at God or if you're angry at the person who died, you can work through that too, because I have. I have. So, in conclusion, have some good shaves. Be happy. I've gotten a lot of comments over the last few weeks of people saying, "Be happy, John." That tagline on my shaves has helped them in a troubled spot, and that's why I put it in there. The way we approach life and our mental attitude about life can definitely be altered and changed by how we think about it and those positive or negative messages that we give ourselves. So every day, say to yourself, be happy. Choose to be happy. And be safe. Until next time, bye-bye.